Okay, In Defense of Ska will begin in just a moment. But first, I just want to say thank you for listening to the podcast. It means so much to us. And if you enjoy the podcast, tell your friends about it. The best way to do that is to, follow us on Instagram and Twitter and share our posts and let people know when they say, hey, is there a podcast I should be listening to? Say yes, In Defense of Ska. Go on to wherever you get podcasts from and subscribe to the podcast. Leave a 5-star review. Let people know that you support In Defense of Ska, that you defend ska. Thanks.
When Bauhaus recorded Bela Lugosi's Dead, they didn't realize they were kickstarting a new genre called goth rock. The song had many influences, but one you may or may not have noticed was dub. Jamaican music was an important part of the melting pot of influences for the members. In fact, on their first batch of recordings in January 1979, there was a ska song called Harry. Today we learn about the ska and reggae roots of Bauhaus by talking with bassist David J. His connection to the genres goes deeper than you probably imagine.
I still can't believe we got someone from like a seminal goth band to be on a ska podcast.
And David J., the bassist of Bauhaus, had a lot to say on the topic of ska and reggae.
I mean, we kind of knew that there was a ska connection there. Now we just got to find the ska connection with all the other bands from that era, all the other vampire-looking bands.
We know they got them.
I love those vampire-looking bands. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that negatively.
But the idea of skanking vampires,
yeah,
that's the world we want.
I'm into it.
I have a friend who lives in Portland. His name's Jeff. And he was telling me that somewhere around 2010, 2011, he saw you DJ at the Lovecraft.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe this was something you were doing at the time.
I'm still doing it. I've been doing it for a long time. Yeah, I love DJing.
So he told me that anytime he saw you play, I think he saw you a few times, there was always a couple ska reggae tracks in there.
Yeah, I'd slip them in.
What tracks do you like to put into your DJ set?
It really depends what the other stuff is, so it's complementary. But it's mainly, I do like to focus on dub. And I've done some sets where I like to actually dub it myself, and I use the controls there and put echo on, reverb and phase it. I love doing that. So I apply that also to other genres, not just reggae.
Yeah. Dub
out the sounds. And that's when it becomes more than just a selector,
Mm-hmm.
It's creative.
So what sort of outboard gear are you using for dubbing things out?
Just a really, really basic. I like the real basic, like the Technics, set up with the. It used to be pretty much exclusively spinning CDs
Mm-hmm.
with a CDJ. And but now most recently I've really gone back to vinyl, and in fact I pretty much exclusively now I'm just spinning 45s, old 7-inch singles. I love doing that. But the mixer I'll use is just the basic, it's sort of like a very basic setup. I can't remember the name of the thing. But we're just with those simple settings, you like I said, like phaser, reverb, echo, that's all I need.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get into beat matching or anything complicated like that.
But just adding that extra layer, coloring it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
What are some ska reggae songs that you like to throw in your mixes? What are some of your tracks?
There's nothing that's really regular. I mean, I just dip into a big pool, and it's pretty spontaneous. Lee Scratch Perry is always a good one to go to,
Mm-hmm.
and King Tubby.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Ali Montedo, Tapazuki, a great one.
The only song my friend Jeff remembers is he said you played "No No No" by Don Penn.
That's a great track, and there's a French version of that. I can't remember who the artist is, but it's brilliant. It's a bit slower and more sensual. Sometimes I pair those two together, and that's very effective.
You go one into the other. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, no, no. I can't remember that artist. Yeah, it's a really cool version of it.
Oh, nice. I like that.
He said when he was there, like there'd be a lot of goths there.
Very perplexed goths.
Perplexed goths. That's what I wanted to ask.
Oh yeah. But I have a sort of malicious glee when I'm spinning these sounds that they're not expecting, and I'm challenging them purposely. But it's in a spirit of openness and expansiveness, and I really hope that my ideal is to turn them onto to music that they wouldn't necessarily be aware of, and I have done that because some of them come round in the end, and they'll ask me to tell them what that record was. What was that? And is that some sort of reggae? Yeah, I really like doing that, challenging their expectations in the extreme.
Yeah.
Clearing the dance floor sometimes, other times filling it.
Do you have a specific memory of like a really dance floor clearing moment?
I did a club here in LA, or this was a long time ago, and it was real hardcore goth night. What was that called? Can't think of the name at the moment. Anyway, that was the scene. And I was playing all sorts of stuff. I was playing like the Beatles' Tomorrow Never Knows. I'm mixing that up with like I mentioned, Lee Scratch Perry, and adding dub effects. And I was playing things like Can. And really all over the place, and not a lot of what would be termed goth music. But it was things like Link Ray, Rumble, and I was up the top of it. It was like a tower, and there was a ladder, and I had these goth kids like climbing up the ladder like little pirates trying to usurp me. Or like, some of them didn't know who I was, and they didn't have that association. They just thought, I was some maniac, some old maniac up who'd gone in the tower and taken over. And what is this?
Oh, that's great.
This is inspirational, mate. And some of them, like I say, that one as well. At the end of the night, I was approached by some kids, and they were enthusiastic. They said, "Well, I've never heard music like this in this club, and we've got so many questions." And I said, "Well, ask away, So I showed them my records, and I did turn them on to that music.
I think, before DJing became such a big business, the DJ used to serve more of a purpose of exposing music. And, I think maybe that changed a little bit when people want a specific experience from DJs.
Yeah.
And they're sort of like rock stars now. But I think, in the older version of DJ, it's like bring the music to the people,
I think of John Peel as a classic example of that, in England. You're aware of John Peel, I take it.
Yes. Yeah.
He was exemplary in that and turned on so many people who became artists in their own right, and he would champion, the independent artists, and I always had great taste, and then of course when he started doing his own sessions, that was really very influential. We did Bauhaus did a couple of sessions with him, very very productive.
It's my understanding that when you were a kid, I think like David Bowie and T-Rex were the first artists to really inspire you to want to play music. But even before that, you discovered like reggae, rocksteady, ska.
Yeah.
And that was the first music that really connected to you.
Yes. Very much so, yeah.
So you, the story as I understand it, and please, like clarify if I'm wrong, you were like 13 and you were going to some youth center in Northampton where you're from. And you found out that at that same club, there was like a dance hall happening, and you snuck in and kind of got full glimpse of this music and this community and everything.
Yeah, that's right. When the youth club ended, we would stay behind and sneak behind. There was like a big stage, and we'd sneak behind the stage, the curtains, and we'd just wait an hour, and then it became a skinhead disco, and all the skins would come in, and they'd turn all the lights would go right down, and they'd have pull these huge speakers into the place and just blast reggae, nothing else. And we would just slip in there, and the skinheads would be kind of amused by us because I was like, we were 13, 14, and these guys were in their late teens, early 20s. They would buy us pints of beer and guffaw at our inability to take these liquid libations. I mean, they would do their dances and then like certain, skanking, skinhead dancing, and we would copy them in the corner, But it's just hearing that music real loud in the dark was very potent.
Yeah.
And then of course the rumbling bass and just how powerful that was. And also the music was a lot of it was music combined with shops. It was from imports from Jamaica. Some of it was mixed. It was mixed with some more known tracks like Desmond Dekker, things like that. But quite a bit of it was really obscure. Never knew what it was. It sounded great.
The first time that happened, it must have been like a complete foreign experience for you.
Yeah. But I heard reggae on the radio, the pop stuff. But this was different, This was deeper. And obviously it was louder and it was in the context of that environment. So yeah, it was a huge eventful experience.
I think I read an interview too where you said that this was also your first exposure to what would be called like a music community or a music scene.
Yeah.
Where people were united by a particular style of music and, had fashion associated with it and all of that.
Oh yeah, the fashion was really key, and I dive full tilt into that. Things like stay pressed trousers, two-tone tonic suits and jackets, and Ben Sherman check shirts, Brutus shirts. We would wear little silk pocket squares. It's very kind of sort of dandified in a kind of Spartan kind of way. And we have the little diamante tie pins and pins to pin your pocket square onto your black Crombie overcoat, and then there was a fashion of wearing the football team that you supported wearing their badge, their stitch badge on the pocket, and of course the Dr. Martens boots were very popular, monkey boots as well, also loafers with 2 tassels on them, white socks, and I never could go with the skinhead haircut, and I compromised, and I just had a very short, close crop, which then became the suede head look. So then all these skins they were adopting that look, and they were kind of praising me, this kid, as the first suede head. You were the first suede head, Dave.
Just because you didn't want to shave your head.
Yeah. So it just became, that was the look,
So I was also reading that I read this other account. I'm not sure if this was a specific event, but you guys went to like a Rasta sound system.
Yeah.
Was that a one-off, or was that did you also do that as well?
I know. That was in the late 70s, early 80s. It's the Africa Centre in the middle of town near the bus station, Greyfriars. And we'd heard about this place, and we'd heard that police just left them alone because they were smoking ganja in there. But nobody interfered with that because it wasn't worth their while. So it was like this temporary autonomous zone. And we decided to brave it and go in one time. And we got a few funny looks because we were literally the only white guys, us three, and one other mate. A few white women in there, but no guys. And but it was like a cool atmosphere. I mean, no trouble at all. And they soon, people there cottoned on that we were just into the music and the scene. And then, I remember some guy passing us a spliff, and that's when we knew we'd been accepted. And then so we would go back there. It was like once a month, but they have some serious sound systems there. They'd also have goat's head soup in a big vat as you went in, and this funky aroma would assail your nostrils as you walked in, and that mixed with the ganja smoke. And it was really dark in there.
Did you ever partake in the goat soup?
Never did. Never fancied that. Should have really.
Yeah.
White red stripe beer from Jamaica,
Mm-hmm.
and the spliffs, and they'd really go to town with the decor. So they would redecorate a room, and it was a big room. They'd redecorate it for each event. So they'd choose a color from the Ethiopian flag, and that would be the theme. And they'd paint the walls, like gold, if that was the theme, or red or green. And then the women would dye their hair that color, and the guys would wear like a casual suit and the big puffy hat, all in that color.
Wow.
So it was really visually arresting as well. And just the whole thing of toasting was really big then, and they would have guys in competition, and they'd just share the microphone, and they'd play instrumental dub plates from Jamaica, which they would dub out live, and then these guys would just do their toasting over the top. Yeah, it was really great.
How full were these venues for this?
Packed,
wall to wall.
Yeah, because there's a big Rastafarian community in Northampton. They were the offspring of the people that came over from the West Indies in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so most of them, or a lot of them, were
they were born in England. Yeah,
born in England. First generation.
Yeah.
Was the music louder than the skinhead clubs?
Oh yeah, much louder. Yeah, it was wall shaking. Yeah.
How can you remember the speakers? How big the speakers were?
Like the size of a truck.
Dang.
I mean, but it was like stacks of speakers, but they were all big.
Right.
But they went right up to the ceiling, and it was like I can't. Huge sound system.
So if you wanted to talk to somebody, you had to go outside.
Or you went into the back. There's like a back area. That's where they had the goat's head soup.
Okay.
And all that. You could hear. Actually, you could talk in there because I mean, the tonality was really on the bass end.
Sure.
It wasn't the high end treble. Somehow you can talk. You can pitch your voice over that or through that more easily. I'm just remembering that whole scene of going there. I used to go there with Pat Fish as well, the jazz butcher, and a friend of ours, Mitch Jenkins, has become a rather famous photographer. And I remember going with him once in the 80s. This was like 85, something like that. And we noticed that it had changed. It was very interesting. And Pat actually mentioned it first. I noticed that it had changed, but he articulated it, and he said the sounds are different. And then it become more electronic. It was just like electronic element creeping into it. And faster. The beats were faster. And it was coming from like dance hall, but it was electronic. And that was interesting. I didn't like it as much as what had preceded it. I liked it, but not as much.
Yeah. Back to the skinhead clubs.
Yeah.
That you went to when you were younger. At those events, was it just play music and dance, or was there anything else kind of happening?
There was an undertone of bristling, impending violence.
Yeah.
Which added to it. It really gave it a charge, because these guys were heavy, you know, and violent. But they were in their own group, so it was very unlikely that anything would go off unless some other rival skins came in. But nobody really fucked with them because they were heavy dudes.
Yeah.
And they would be sort of rather acerbic with us. They'd tease us, you know, kids. But it was kind of good-natured. But they would like break our balls a bit, you know, which is a bit of a test. Like, it's a gang, you know. If you want to be even on the peripheral of this gang, you have to show that you've got that you're a bit tasty, as they would say.
They appreciated the fact that you took an interest in it, because probably wasn't a lot of kids sneaking in and wanting to be part of it.
They would do things like, because they had the skinhead girlfriends as well, and that was a particular look. It was like their hair was like a grown out suede. It's like a suede,
like the Chelsea, like the kind of bangs in the front with the
and the long sides, you know, and they would have the two-tone tonic skirts and all that. I mean, I thought they looked great, but we would sometimes be jostled and pushed by their boyfriends. Yeah, go and dance with her. Go and dance with that bird. Go on. Like, we're very shy, you know. Cute little kids. We'd make a half-hearted attempt. It's like, yeah, you're all right. You're a bit tasty. Have a beer. Don't you get too cheeky with my bird.
Yeah. So the imports from Jamaica, those were like hard to find if you wanted to buy them, correct?
Yeah.
But Trojan, they were also playing Trojan records, right? And those weren't as hard to find.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the first album I ever bought was Trojan Reggae Chartbusters Volume 2.
Do you still have it?
The metallic cover. I don't have that. I want to get it. It's been on my mind to get that again. And and Trojan put out some amazing stuff. But we would go down to London to the independent reggae stores down there, like Daddy Cool's and Greensleeves, and you could get them there. And that was a joy, just like on a weekend, to go down on a Saturday and just flip through the vinyl and get. And they would play anything you picked out. And I got a lot of my records that way. And you'd ask the guy in the shop, you know, what was good, what was cool. They would happily engage with you.
Mm-hmm. That first record you bought?
Yeah.
Any tracks stick in your mind as like particular favorites?
Oh God, what was on there? I remember Montego Bay on it. Long Shot, Kick the Bucket. Return of Django, I think, was on that. It was that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. The Israelites, I think, maybe is on there. Itmek, Monkey Spanner. The first single I ever bought was Dave and Ansel Collins' Double Barrel. And I found out years later that Daniel Ash, that was the first single he ever bought.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. That's a great sounding record.
How popular was this music? Was it just sort of popular?
It was very popular. It was really popular in England.
Was it popular just with sort of with like sort of the subculture, or was it?
No. I mean, it made an impression on the charts, you know. And that was obviously the more commercial poppy side of it. But if you cared to dig deeper, and then there was this whole other side.
Yeah.
I mean, I think most people just knew of the pop stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like generationally, though, because I know a lot of the people involved in punk. They're my age. They had a very similar experience to me growing up, turning teenage, and hearing reggae because it was all around, and then diving a bit deeper of their own volition and discovering more, deeper cuts in that area, and it's very influential on all those musicians. I think it's comparable to the way early rhythm and blues influenced the beat groups, that black music. But that was ours, the reggae. And somebody like Don Letts, who I actually met up with again quite recently, was very instrumental in not really exposing people to that music because they already knew it, but to just to sort of hold that torch and play reggae in the clubs where he DJ'd, because there were very few punk records, So it was sort of the punk records that had come out that week or week before, plus loads of reggae, and it worked. It was very simpatico.
Yeah. So the Roxy, this was like a punk club, and
the 100 Club. The Roxy was his club, Don's.
Yeah, so he would do this like between bands too, right? So there'd be punk bands playing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A lot of the punks of your generation grew up with reggae, but this sort of cemented the idea that these styles of music belong together.
Yeah. Also, it was it goes deeper because it's also socio-political. It sort of led into rock against racism and things like that, because the music obviously was made by our black brethren, and it's like saying, this race make this fantastic music, There's a strange kind of, with some elements in the skinhead community, there's a strange contradictory element that they were anti-Asians, very much so, Indians, and it's really unfortunate, but the West Indians, or those from the West Indian background, were praised because of their music. So you didn't have skinheads picking on kids that had come from that background, but you certainly had them picking on and terrorizing people from like Pakistan, India, and there were a lot of people from those places in England.
Wasn't the perception that that the Asian immigrants were not assimilating or something like that?
It was that, and it's also this ridiculous thing that they were taking our jobs,
Sure.
The usual, fascist game plan, to use that and turn people against the other.
There was a thing called the Anti-Packy League, was like sort of the brunt of that, yeah.
Yeah, but then there was the Anti-Nazi League, and there was the National Front that came through as well, and there were a lot of a certain type of skinhead element in that.
Yeah.
Very, right-wing fascist. So did you kind of witness like some amount of the skinheads turning right-wing and fascist?
No, it was just a different element. They were different.
I see.
The ones that I knew right from the beginning were cool,
Did you go to any of the Rock Against Racism events?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I saw the one with really big one with Elvis Costello. He opened his set with "What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding," the Nick Lowe song, which was so apropos. Yeah, that was a big movement, and very positive. Really proud to have been there and part of that, supporting that.
So I want to talk about, you're one of the founders of Bauhaus, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to play guitar in the band. So you volunteered to play the bass, and you took the high strings off your guitar initially?
Would that even work? I don't think that would even work.
No.
Is that not a true story? Okay.
No, I did do that, but that was way before Bauhaus. That's when I was at school.
Okay.
And that was just the first, silly, not even a band, just a bunch of boys, just wanting to play some music together. And that was the case there. Everybody wanted to play lead guitar. And we needed a bass player. So I volunteered. And I volunteered because I loved reggae and I knew that the bass was a big part of that.
Yeah, definitely.
So I did do that thing, with my cheap guitar and take off the top two strings and turn all the bass up on the crappy amp, turn all the treble down.
I bet that sounded amazing, David, right?
It sounded bloody awful. But then, I saved up my money, did a holiday job, and I got my first bass.
So what's that first bass? What did you get?
It was quite bravery. It was a fretless.
Oh, wow.
It's a Fender P fretless.
Fender P fretless. Did it have any fret markings or just?
No. I just really like the look of it.
Sure.
And the guy in the store, he tried to put me off. He said, "No, kid, you don't. No, this is a whole different beast. This is you don't want to go this road.
Uh-huh.
You won't know what you're playing." And so as soon as he said that, I was like, dug my heels, and I thought, "No, I really do want it. I want that." I said, "Can I try it?" He said, "No, you can't try. Come on." So I did try, and as soon as I held this thing, it felt great, and I just sliding my fingers up and down, and oh yeah. Actually, I tell a lie. I did have a cheap bass before that. I can't even remember what it was. It was just a horrible Japanese. It was awful.
Right, just a monster with horrible action.
Yeah, I can't remember what that. It's so horrible. I blotted it from my memory. Yeah, so when I got this Fender P, it was like luxury, because it was a very nice instrument. That's actually the guitar I had all the way through Bauhaus and Love and Rockets initially, until it died a glorious death in flames and a fire.
Wait, what happened here?
Oh, it's a whole story, man. It was a fire. Rick Rubin's house. We were rehearsing at his house.
Okay.
We're staying there, Daniel and I, and there was a fire. I write about it at length in my book, in my memoir, Who Killed Mr. Moonlight. So if you really want that story, and it's a hell of a story, pick up the book. It's all in there. Yeah.
Go get the book. So your bass idols were Paul McCartney and Errol Flabba Holt, correct?
Yeah, really. Especially Paul roundabout. Well, not roundabout, but on the Revolver album, where he went with the bass on that. Mm-hmm. That's extraordinary.
Yeah, Paul McCartney as a bass player, I don't know if he gets the props he's due on that.
It's because he's known for so many other things,
Yeah, he's such a good songwriter, but I mean, his bass playing, amazing.
It's unpredictable, it's unconventional, it's super melodic, or if it just needs to be really primal and simple, it is. And I love that, that's something I've always done, is just this, whatever serves the song. If it's just one note, which is like on a track like Bauhaus's Spine the Cow, it's basically just one bleep, bleep, and that works. Yeah. It suits that track, and other songs, this can be quite a complicated bass line. It's whatever it's called for. But Flabba Holt, I noticed, I'd had all these records, and I just started looking at the sleeves to find out who the bass player was, and time after time was him, Errol Flabba Holt. So he's the man.
Yeah, so the group is called Roots Radic, and they backed like hundreds of reggae records, basically.
Yeah.
Same band for, countless different singers and groups. Mm-hmm. Can you speak a little bit on what he did from a bass playing technical standpoint that you really liked?
It's so self-assured, and it's just so laid back and in the pocket. You know, it just sits in the track perfectly. You know, I think someone like Jar Wobble does that as well, and I really admire his playing. It's just steady. It's steady.
That's Public Image Limited, right?
Yeah. And then there are other players like Fernando Saunders, who play with Lou Reed a lot. I really like his playing. That's a different style. It's more top endy with some more fills, but it's always really tasteful and soulful. John Entwistle was another influence. Great bass player.
Yeah, he's great. He's from The Who.
Yeah, one of the first bass parts I learned was My Generation, that break in the middle. Took me ages to get that
down. Were you learning it off of a record?
Yeah, just playing the record.
So you have to keep lifting the needle and putting it back. And
yes, exactly that. Yeah,
yeah.
And Bill Wyman, I think, was a really underrated bass player. Always played just what was needed. I think he was a huge part of the Stones.
Yeah.
So what was the role reggae played for the rest of the Bauhaus? Were they all into the music?
Not Peter so much, but the rest of us, Daniel and Kevin, and us three used to go to that Africa Centre, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Kevin and I were big into reggae and would listen to records together all the time, just hanging out at home. And Daniel was into it as well. Daniel really loves dub, and he got a Wem copycat echo unit very early on and applied that to his guitar and knew how to use that, to great effect. And it was Daniel who operated the in-house analog echo box in the Beck Studios when we did Bela Lugosi. So that's Daniel, Daniel at the controls. They're doing that live, one take, one pass.
Is that a tape echo you guys were using for that?
Yeah, we don't know what it was. It might have been a custom thing that Derek Tompkins built, because he built a lot of his own gear.
He had recorded several reggae artists before you, and so wasn't it his suggestion to say, hey, the reggae artists, they like to come in and kind of manually add these effects, so why don't you guys do this to Bela Lugosi's Dead?
No, we were already doing it. I mean, that was a big part of that the sound of that track, but we were using the Wem copycat, and we were going to use that, and he said, well, before you use that, have a look at this thing. I've got it rigged up in the studio, so it's all set up, and he demonstrated it, and it was amazing. And he said, because the Rastas would come in and do tracks and make dub tracks. He played us a couple of things that he'd done, so he knew what that was about. And so we seized this device, and that's what he had on the record.
Bela Lugosi's Dead is the very first song the band wrote and recorded, right?
The first one we wrote together, yeah. I mean, I joined the band last, and he and Peter had written a few songs, but that was the first group composition, yeah.
And you recorded it in one take.
Yeah.
And Peter had a cold during that recording, right?
I think he did, yeah.
I also read that there was one edit made after the fact, and that was the engineer fixed one of your mistakes.
Yeah, I played a bum note in there, and I've never seen anybody do this, but he stopped the tape and got a razor blade out, and he was about to cut the tape. And I said, "What the hell are you doing?" And Derek, he had a pronounced stutter, he said, what am I doing? I'm trying to make you sound like you can play that bloody thing. So that shut me up, and he just sliced away and dropped this note out and stuck it back together and then played it, and I was like, he's right.
So funny, now we can just do that with a push of a button.
I know, it seems crazy now thinking back.
Yeah.
And you had to do the with the tape, back and forth, find the spot.
Yeah. Scrub it back and forth.
At the time, did you feel like you were taking influence from reggae and dub in this particular song?
Oh yeah, knew we were. Yeah.
So you kind of viewed the song as your sort of interpretation of reggae, dub reggae?
Yeah, it's applying that idea.
A lot of that must be in your bass line is specifically, right?
Not really, not on that track. It's not really a dubby bass line. It's a descending part. And it's going back and forth between the root note and octave. And I'm actually playing chords on the beginning in effect. It's not just one note, it's two notes.
It definitely has, like, you can hear the reggae dub elements in it.
In the space, there's that space in there, but it's more the guitar that's supplying that dub element, and of course the drums are pure bossa nova.
Yeah, I know the bossa nova. It's weird because the beat sounds kind of reggae to me, but it is bossa nova, so it's kind of
Well, it's probably because of all the echo that's been put on it.
Yeah,
and the rim shot, sound of that rim shot.
You had the idea for the song lyrically because you had been watching a bunch of vampire movies.
It was a season of horror films, classic horror films on TV that Danny and I had both been watching. Yes, and he called me up about when are we going to rehearse next, and then we got into chatting about, did you see that film last night, Bela Lugosi? I said, yeah, did you see that? That was great, and then we were talking about that, talking about how his accent really added to the mystique of the character. So that was in my head, and then the next day I used to work in this warehouse packing up goods in cardboard boxes and shipping them all over England. And I had these labels in my back pocket, and I had a bicycle, and I was riding home, and it just bubbled up. That first line, white on white, translucent, black coats back on the wreck. And I just wrote it down on one of these labels. And by the time we got home, I had the whole thing written down. And then we had a rehearsal the next day. That was that.
She just handed the label to Peter and said, "Sing this."
Out the labels, I transferred it onto a sheet of paper, but stuck it in front of his nose, and he interpreted it in the way he did.
Incredible.
Did you know right away that it was going to be a song that was nearly 10 minutes as you guys were going through this? Or that was just the feel that felt right?
It was the feel that felt right. We knew it was great. We knew it was like we scared ourselves. It's like, what have we just done? What have we just... what is that?
Every label besides the one that you landed with, which was Small Wonder, they were just like, this song's too long.
Oh, yeah.
But Small Wonder, got it. They understood that.
Yeah, instantly. Pete Stennett, yeah, bless him. He saw it, and even by that time, because we'd heard this so many times, it's too long, it's great, but it's too long, make it shorter. We started to second guess ourselves by that point, and we said to Pete, we're getting this, it's too long, should we edit it a bit? And he's like, really passionate, no way! No way! He said, this is like Velvet Underground's Sister Ray. It's really long, but you want to hear every second of it. He said, it's all part of the magic of it. No way are you gonna touch this.
The first session, the session you recorded Bela Lugosi's Dead, I think, if I understand, it was a 3-hour session and there was 4 other songs recorded.
Yeah.
One of those songs was called Harry, which I think became a B-side. And it's a song about Deborah Harry, or it references Deborah Harry.
Yeah.
It's got a pretty overtly ska reggae feel to it.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Were you just straight up going for like a ska song on that?
No, we never really went for anything in particular. We'd never discuss it. We'd just start playing together, and it would just come out of this brew, would emerge. And Daniel started that one off with he just started doing that upstroke, although knowing reggae it's a downstroke. I think he was doing an upstroke, and Kevin just joined in, and Peter he was sort of kind of writing those words at the time, and I joined in, and it just all just naturally came together. That's like all of our stuff was like that.
So mostly just writing by jamming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know the story behind why the song was about Deborah Harry?
I think Peter had a bit of a thing about her, like we all did in those days. But yeah, it's kind of a bit of an abstract take on Debbie Harry.
Sure, yeah.
It's sort of like talking about the New York scene, and which we were fascinated by, just the whole idea of New York at that time. When we finally did get to New York, it was not disappointing.
How so?
It was amazing. 1980 New York City. You have a picture from films and TV and photographs and music, and quite often that when you go to the actual place, it can be a letdown because it cannot live up to the fantasy or the representation in media. But this exceeded it. It was just like the ultimate city. And we were staying in this, it was a cheap rock and roll hotel, the Iroquois, just off of Times Square, and we went straight to the bar, of course, pulled up for stools, and there was one other stall, and we were just having a beer, and then we were just chatting quietly, and then we see the guy comes in, this little guy, and pulls up a stool, and in this very distinctive voice, he says, yeah, I'll have a beer. Deep, dark brown voice, and it was Iggy Pop.
Whoa.
Who was one of our major inspirations, up there with Bowie, easy.
Sure.
So we were like, it was like elbowing each other semi-discreetly. So it's Iggy. And he cottoned on, he heard us saying that, and he was like, oh, hey guys, you look like you're a band. Are you a band? What's the band called? He said Bauhaus. I said, Bauhaus? I like, Weimar, Germany, 20s. I said, yeah, that's cool. And then we engaged in this conversation. And that was really something. I remember his huge eyes, and very impassioned man. He said, you're sort of kind of baiting us a bit and saying, you probably think you're great, you guys, but probably not anywhere near as good as you think you are. When are you playing? So he said, we're playing tomorrow. And we had a little club gig, a place called Tier 3. And then we were going to Chicago and I think Toronto. And then we were coming back and playing Danceteria, which is a bigger venue. He said, well, I can't make the first one, but I'm going to try my best to get to the Danceteria. I'm going to see you guys as good as you think you are. And we were like, okay, you're right, Not thinking he would. But he did. He actually turned up. He was down the front and he was heckling Peter.
What was he doing?
He was just sort of baiting him, just sort of, come on, show me what you got, kid. Come on, motherfucker. Show me what you got, all that. And then when we came off the stage, we all said, that was Iggy Pop there, down the front. And it's like, yeah, I reckon it was. And next thing we knew, the door bursts open, and then he comes in, like doing a kung fu move. And he says, oh, guys, I got to tell you, that was great. He said, I was passing the venue, and I see the name Bauhaus. I remember those guys. I say to the driver, park up the car, and we're going to go in and check these guys out. But they think they're great, but they're probably shit. So just keep the motor running, because I'm probably going to be in and out. He said, and I tell you guys, he's still out there with a motor running, and I'm in here, so that's it. Yeah, so that was great.
Sure, yeah. New York definitely didn't disappoint.
No, and just being on the streets, just walking around, just soaking up that atmosphere. And there's a lot of street art happening at that time, which was really vibrant. I mean, just going down onto the subway, and it was like a moving art gallery with all the painted carriages. Yeah. I was just down there, just mesmerized by this flash of color and shapes, and it was like the peak of that era, and then just the some of the street art, that was up on the walls. It's incredible. And just the smell of the place, it smelled like a city should smell. It's kind of, I don't know, it was in winter. It was in November, I think it was, and it just had this there was a crispness to the air, but then all that like steam coming out of the manholes and the smell of toasted nuts on the corner, and it was really summery.
Not entirely a bad smell.
No, it's a great smell. I love that smell.
Great
like
smell.
A smoky city smell.
Yeah.
I fell in love with it. Basically, I fell in love.
I love it.
Before you had gotten to go to New York and you were really fascinated with this scene, this New York punk, like CBGB scene, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
What was your kind of idea about it? Did it just seem just fantastical to you?
Kind of fantastical, but, obviously really gritty.
Yeah.
And in a very appealing way. So I went to see the Ramones when they played first time in London at the Roundhouse in '76, and they were the epitome for me, the representative of what was happening in New York, their punk scene, and that was such a great gig. Lots of the punk bands were there in the audience. Joe Strummer and Mick Jones were standing right behind me, literally. So it's just like this, the mean streets, leather jackets, and come on the sidewalk, and rough and ready, kind of urgent rock and roll, and just the flair of the individuals involved in all that scene. Patti Smith was a big one. That Horses album was really, really impacting. And things like early Talking Heads, Johnny Thunders and Heartbreakers.
So Bauhaus, the Bela Lugosi's Dead, you recorded, I believe, in like January '79. Later that year, the Specials released Gangsters, and two-tone ska just kind of, becomes a thing in England.
Exploded, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really curious what your perspective, because Bauhaus is happening at the same time. There's all these different styles of music happening at the same time. What was two-tone ska like in that landscape?
Really exciting. We absolutely adored that scene, and the Specials in particular. Yeah, it was wonderful. Very complimentary as well. They were talking about their lives in the same way that punk bands were talking about their lives. So it was very real. It was, drawing from that music, but not just copying it and singing about things that are not relevant to your life. It's singing about things that are very relevant. So that made it very vital and done really well. And just everything on that two-tone label was really great. It was really well executed. The design of everything was great. The look of the bands, the sounds. Yeah, really into that.
Before the Specials released Gangsters, were you familiar with the band when they were kind of in their formative period? Because they were developing for like a year or two, right? And originally called the Specials, AKA.
Yeah. I'm very, very aware.
Did you know them?
No, but they come from an area that's quite near to Northampton in Coventry, just down the road, really. So they're Midlands boys.
Did you go to see did you go see these bands play?
I know my brother did because he was really into it. I think he saw the Specials with the opening for the Clash, and
dang.
Yeah, I didn't see any of them live, but I had all their records.
It was interesting how well they presented themselves in terms of the fashion and the look. They kind of all had it seemed kind of like it came out the gate fully formed.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So I mean, you guys were kind of different worlds, but sort of overlapped with this sort of the larger umbrella of being like the punk thing, maybe? Is that how it felt?
Post-punk at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the music they were playing, like the specials, I mean, that's the music we would play in the dressing room before we went on to do a gig, you know. We played ska and we'd
Oh, yeah?
yeah, sure.
So wait, Bauhaus was listening to the specials backstage before they'd go out and play?
Not the specials, but like Desmond Decker and things like that, you know, like early, you know, like Jamaican ska. Prince Buster.
That's like a beautiful little vignette in my mind. You guys sitting backstage listening to that before going out to play.
Oh, yeah. And on the road, you know, traveling and gig to gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that when you guys would record in the studio, or maybe it was one particular record, I'm not sure, that at the end of the day you would unwind by listening to either late 60s Beatles or reggae music.
Yeah, it's true. Mainly more reggae than Beatles.
More reggae than Beatles, yeah.
And also like things like Can, like Suicide, early electronic stuff, Kraftwerk.
The amount of influence that reggae and Jamaican music had on all this post-punk is so interesting. Like, essentially, the specials are pulling from similar influences and similar kinds of music, but you guys take it in a different direction. Bands like the Slits take it in a different direction.
Yeah, I love the Slits.
Yeah, just the amount of this music with post-punk, it seems like you were saying earlier, like R&B was a key ingredient before that, but reggae was sort of like such a fundamental part.
Yeah, when you think of a band like the Pop Group, I think they used it really well.
Mm-hmm.
And when they worked with Dennis Bouvel, that was a great coupling. He produced the Slits as well, of course.
Yeah. And Don Litz, he managed them? Is that what his role was with the Slits?
I think Don says he tried to manage them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. They were a handful, especially Ariel. Don actually, he co-directed the Bauhaus video, Telegram Sam.
Oh, really?
He couldn't be credited because of a union thing. Yeah. But that's when we met Don.
Oh, what was that like?
That was great. He's a great guy. Very, very intelligent, you know, culturally aware. Great tasty music, of course.
Did he use like a pseudonym then?
He did in those days, but on our video, I don't think he's even listed as under a pseudonym. It was some weird thing with he didn't have, you know, he wasn't signed up
Sure.
with the union or something like that.
Huh.
What was the pseudonym that you would use?
I can't remember. Might have been a couple.
I know we talked about David Bowie, big influence. And later on in like 82, you guys covered Ziggy Stardust, which I think that song did really well for you, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So in 83, you guys met Bowie, right? On the set of the movie The Hunger?
Yeah.
I would love to hear what that was like. Was that the first time you met him?
Yeah, it was.
So he was in the movie. You guys were on set just because your music was in the movie, or did you have any other involvement?
No, it's because they were using the song Bela Lugosi, and you know, featuring that song. Apparently, the director, he asked for Bowie's approval, and he gave the thumbs up for that to be included. So that was nice to know that.
Nice to know that David Bowie likes your song.
Yeah, I like the band. He's Bauhaus, all right. Bauhaus are cool. I said it, apparently. He was lovely on the set, and I think he was relating to us like the boys in the band, away from all the film people, you know. And I had a magic moment with him actually on that.
You had a magic moment?
Yeah. So they were taking a break. They were setting up a shot. Pretty complicated scene. I think it was actually the scene where, you know, they're in the nightclub, him and Catherine Deneuve. It was amazing being on the set with Catherine Deneuve, who I had a big crush on since there was a wee lad. Anyway, his dressing room, which was directly opposite hers, was adjacent to our little holding area, as it were. We didn't have a dressing room; it was like an area, and in that area there was a 1950s. Well, it's a jukebox, very well stacked with 50s, 60s, and 70s, 45s. And I was just there on my own, looking at these records, deciding what to play, and I became aware of this looming presence behind me, very strong vibe. And I was just carried on looking, and then I heard a voice pipe up saying, "Do you mind if I choose one?" And it was him. I said, "No, please, please." So I backed away, and he starts to look, and he presses the numbers, and he played "Grooving with Mr. Blow" by Mr. Blow, instrumental from 1970. Do you know that? Do you know that song?
Do you know that, Aaron?
It's not ringing a bell. No.
It's a great track. But he starts dancing in front of me, like really full on dancing with his arms up in the air, and just like, looking at me and smiling, that smile, and I'm just sort of sheepishly smiling back and nodding. It was so surreal, and he dances away, and then I think it was my hubris came from nervousness. I said, "This reminds me of something." And he said, "Oh, what's that then?" Not breaking his step, carrying on dancing. So it's one of yours. He goes, "Oh, what's that then?" So he's off the low. He goes, "Well, come on, then what?" I said, "A new career in a new town." And when I said that, he briefly stopped, put his finger to his lips, and winked and smiled, and then carried on dancing. Because I always thought that's where he cribbed that from. There's a particular harmonica part in Mr. Blow that's just like on A New Career in a New Town. So I had a confirmation there, which was beautiful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you have any other interactions with Bowie in your life, or was that it?
It was just that one day, but at the end of the day, it was rather touching because it's a long day, and us four were just getting ready to go, and we were hoping to say goodbye to Bowie, and he was nowhere to be seen. We thought, oh, he's gone. We were a bit crestfallen, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So we just picking up our bags. Then we hear these steps running down the hallway, and the doors burst open, and it's Bowie. He goes, boys, I'm glad I found you. I just wanted to say it's great working with you. Really good band, and I'd like to come and check you out live when I can, if you're playing in London or wherever." Said that, good luck, and he shook everyone's hand, and he was just really wonderful, He made that effort to do that.
Yeah.
So we were on cloud nine.
But to your knowledge, did he ever come to one of the shows?
Not to my knowledge, unless he was incognito, in disguise.
Yeah.
Lurking in the shadows. Run through the shadows. I don't know.
Don't go anywhere. If you want to hear the rest of this conversation, head over to our Patreon. Thank you for listening to In Defense of Ska. Please rate and review this podcast and tell a friend. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at In Defense of Ska. Pick up Aaron's book, In Defense of Ska, at your local bookstore or online. This podcast is edited by Chris Reeves of Ska Punk International. This is your co-host, Adam Davis of Omnigone, leaving you by saying ska now more than ever. Bela Lugosi's dead. How many times have you listened to the entire song Bela Lugosi's Dead?
I mean, I'm sure I've listened to the entire 10 minutes of that numerous times.
How many times?
I don't know.
Because I like that song a lot, and I don't think I've listened to it all the way through more than like 5 times.
Well, you just
it's
put
so
it on.
long.
Yeah, but you put it on and you vibe.
Something else happens every time.
Clean your house.
Yeah.
That was such a good interview.
It was amazing. Yeah. I can't believe we got to talk to somebody from Bauhaus.
Now, after we finished the episode and we went behind the curtain, he told us just a mind-boggling, insane story about his time with Alan Moore, the creator of Watchmen.
Probably the weirdest story Like literally. I think it's the weirdest story anybody has ever told us on this podcast.
And so if you want to hear this weird story, you can do that. It'll cost you $5 or more.
Just head over to the Patreon. Look, we say it every week. Just go over to the Patreon. If you sign up, you'll get these full episodes without having to go anywhere. It'll just play the rest of the episode after you're done. So,
and you'll get it several days early too.
Wouldn't that be nice to live in the future? Live in the future with us at In Defense of Ska.
You'll be talking about In Defense of Ska days before everyone else on the playground.
Nobody will know what you're talking about because you'll have all the information early. You'll have all the answers to the test early. Everyone else will fail, and you will be the valedictorian of Ska.
And all you have to do is skip coffee for one day, and you got it.
You don't even have to skip coffee. Just make coffee at home.
Yeah, just make coffee at home and
Easy.
Then buy In Defense of Ska on your computer.